does a fat guy put on deodorant? Like this. That can't be relaxing for anyone. Alright, what's up, godless sodomites? We're going to do something a little bit new. I'm going to just read the weirdest shit I can find on Reddit. If you like it, or if you don't, I don't care. These are literally like just the top threads on Reddit that I'm seeing for Am I the Asshole? Which is one of my favorite subreddits. So we're just going to go one at a time. I'm just going to tell you if you're an asshole in like 1 minute. Am I the asshole for losing my shit after the HOA prevented my disabled veteran neighbor from making necessary adjustments to his house? Give me a minute, I want to read this. Okay, so this was posted by somebody by the name of commercial_ad. Basically, the long story short is that their neighbor is a disabled veteran who had lost a leg, and they were building a wheelchair ramp. You're not an asshole. Don't you worry. Fucking punch someone next time. The HOA yelled at them because it was the wrong color after the HOA didn't reply. Just destroy their shit. Doesn't matter. Burn down the HOA. I mean, don't do that, but, you know, metaphorically, with a lawsuit. Looks like ADA is going to be involved, so, you know what? Kudos. You get 5 out of 5 points. Am I the asshole for not buying pads for my sister's best friend during her first period? I am 18. Not even going to read anything else. You're the asshole, dude. Burns so good, I'm going to die young. All right. Am I the asshole for telling the court that I would rather live with my dad after my mom showed up with her stepkids to the dinner I had planned? Long story short, it looks like it's someone in their teens. It says 18. I'm not sure if that's right or not. This is from Alan Muss. Alan Muss, you're not the asshole. You're not going to see this, but you know what? Just to confirm, I'm going to go ahead and comment for you with my good old Tummy Overlord account. So I'm going to tell you straight up, no. You are entitled to pick the parent that you live in if they have that decision that you're able to make, or if you tell the court your decision, based upon rational facts. If you're not being led or if you're not being judged by the family for any kind of actions that you're taking, or if you are not making any kind of a predisposition to your father or to your mother based upon any kind of biases or any kind of financial earnings, then you're perfectly fine. And even if you are making based upon financial earnings, which is not the case from the story that I just read, doesn't matter. You have to count for your own comfort level. You have to count for your own decisions and your own feelings. And if, you know, you see your mother and you don't have an unloving relationship or you don't have a bad relationship, you're not the asshole. That's all it is to it. Second period. Gross. I'm not even a guy that's like too upset about menstrual blood. It's just the things on the subreddit have just been, if you were to take normal level here, for no reason. Am I the asshole for telling my daughter to stop boiling her menstrual cups in this spaghetti pot? Well, it's one way to make a spicy meatball. I am 43. Oh, it's a mother! I am a 43 mother of twin girls, both 15. I've been using menstrual cups for about 10 years, so I taught my girls to use them too. Is this where you bleed into it? It's like, it's not like this, but it goes into the cooter booter, right? Am I wrong? It goes in the cooter booter, right? And then you just kind of, you freeform some blood drops there? Okay, no, you're not the asshole. Your daughter's... Third one. I seriously, this is the top of the page. I'm not deciding to just show out my vampire fetish here. Am I the asshole for telling my sister-in-law that she can't sleep at my house for Thanksgiving if she's on her period? I don't even know what that means. So, probably. I didn't want my floor to be overrun with period blood, metaphorically. So I'm going to switch over to TIL, which is Today I Learned, another great subreddit. Probably my top, aside from Not the Onion, just for great news stories. Just go scroll down, see what we got. Today I learned the crew of the $6 Million Man discovered a corpse of an Old West outlaw while filming in a funhouse. That is 100% correct. And actually the story gets way more wild. If I remember correctly, without even clicking on that article, it's something to the effect of they were buying stage parts and they thought it was a body for like a Halloween exhibit in the funhouse, and it kept getting moved and kept getting switched over, and somebody had went to yank on the arm, and then the arm tore off, and then there was, I mean, it was mostly frozen, or it was in cold storage, my understanding, that it dried out, but they saw the bone and the actual muscle still attached, where the sinuous remains on the body. Sam Minell actually did a video about that, and in one of his like body mishaps or corpse hijinks, something like that. Very good video. Today I learned that the majority of the Higgins boats, which were deployed to deliver troops in the D-Day invasion of Normandy, were piloted by members of the Coast Guard. I actually did know that, and the reason, I'm not entirely certain, but I think it was that the naval expertise or naval pilots weren't available for that operation, so they had to get somebody else that was available, and it was mostly through like Coast Guard services, which is awesome all the same. Until the Anatomy Act of 1832 in the UK, it was that there wasn't enough corpses for medical practices, and so the theft of corpses for jewelry, clothing, or any other kind of articles of profit would be seen as an act that was punishable by death. Stealing the body was only punishable as a fine. There's actually a couple of famous corpse bandits that were used in a lot of the development of the modern human anatomical studies that we currently have. That was done, I think, mostly from like 1820 to 1810. I can't remember the exact dates, but very cool and historical figures associated with that. I shouldn't say cool. It's probably not the right word for grave robbers. I think the most famous, there was two serial killers named Burke and Hare. I wanted to stop and smoke for a second. Burke and Hare was really interesting. They actually kept finding bodies going missing, and they kept finding people dying. A lot of the times what they would do is they would bring them to their... I can't remember if it was Burke or Hare's wife's retreat, or it was an inn of some kind. Get them so plastered drunk that they would just be susceptible to any kind of killing, and then Burke and Hare would murder them. Some state that it was not necessarily... I think Hare was the one that wasn't involved. Maybe it was Burke, the other way around, that kind of vice versa situation. But yeah, they would murder the patrons that they brought in so nicely and seduced a couple, I believe, as well as some other people. Burke and Hare would then sell the bodies to the local university, which I think it was Cambridge. Maybe it wasn't Cambridge. We gotta check. I'm not gonna do the research for that. And then essentially they were caught because I think it was a little boy, one of the family members, recognized it was his sister or one of his, maybe it was his parents. I think it was the sister though. And essentially they went to this physician and said, "Do you know that Burke and Hare are murdering people?" The physician said, "Nope." And got off mostly free, I think. Burke and Hare were then hanged to death. I think one of their wives got away. Not sure. And I thought we could go for a little bit of a treat tonight, just between you and me. Don't tell your mom. We've got everyone's favorite 1979, The World's People, and The World's Food Supply. I actually haven't read this. I have a lot of the Carolina biology major books that we have listed here. I've got a small collection of things, my favorite of which is probably biological clocks, and the second part, which is homeostatic regulation, both of which basically work on the metabolic rates and the overall life cycles of organisms, including polyps and other, quote, immortal organisms, even though that was written back in the 1970s, and some of our understanding might not nearly have been as complete as it is now. When we say immortal, we really mean, like, I think there's some jellyfish, some cnidarians. I think there's a, quote, immortal crab. It can essentially restart its life cycle. It's really cool. Just get a couple pages in. I think you're okay for that, right? Over the past 50 years, and probably longer, a major portion of the world's population has been undernourished or starving. Amen, sister. That's in the book. The World Bank recently found that 65% of the people in developing countries, excluding China, receive at least 15% fewer calories than needed to function efficiently. This deficiency amounts to about 10% of the caloric needs of that developing country, and about 4% of the world's caloric output. The Wortmann's 1976 analysis of the situation is brighter, estimating the 50% deficiency as true of the diets of only about 40 or 50% of the people of a developing nation. But it is not clear about the same countries. The situation of human population exceeding its food supply has probably obtained since the invention of agriculture about 10,000 years before current era, and perhaps since the beginning of Homo sapiens, roughly 200,000 years of current era. It may even go back to the beginning of Homo sapiens evolution about 2 million years before Common Era, and perhaps to the beginning of life on Earth. Today, between 50 to 60% of the people of the developing nations, who comprise about 72% of the world's population of 4,000 million, so again, 4 billion. Why did they put it as 4,000 million? Interesting. Do not have enough calories and or have a nutritionally inadequate diet. Excuse me. This means that about 50% of the human population is hungry today, the same analysis as that of Harris Brown and myself in 1957. Wow. So she wrote this 23 years later? Okay. Good. Good on you. All right. Let's go, James and Diana. Changes in population and food supply. Figure 1 shows the latest information available, shows that the world's population has increased by about 2% per year for the last 10 years. I don't know if that's still accurate or not. I'd have to take a look and see what that actually shows. Food production has increased at the same rate, so food production per person has not changed in theory. In the developed nations, 28% of the world population, or the population has increased by 0.7% per year, food production by about 2.8% per year. These countries have experienced an increase of about 4% per year in food production per person, far more than that person can use. So again, overconsumption or overusage in developed nations. This has made possible the sale of food from developed to less developed countries. Sales principally from North America to communist countries such as this is dated. Okay. To the Soviet Union and China, and also to India and Bangladesh. About 10% of the world cereal or grain production, in this case it's a 1.3 times 10 to the 9th power tons per year, moves in international trade. 31 years ago? 1.3 times 10 million, billion, trillion. Trillion tons? Is that right? Wow. Okay, 1.3 trillion tons? Or 13 trillion tons? Is that what that would be? One of the two. And that was 30 years ago. The developing countries, on the other hand, have experienced population growth of about 2.4%. That adds up. But food production increase of only 1.5% per year, so deficit of 0.9% per person. Again, these are all a per-person statistic. These nations have experienced a growing food deficit of about 1% per year for the last 8 or 10 years. Their production of food per person has decreased. Thus, the difference in food available per capita between developing and developed nations is due, 1, to the rate of population growth, slow in the developed nations, rapid in the developing nations. That creates a disproportionate amount. Easy to understand. 2, to the rate of increase in food production, rapid in the developed nations, slower in the developing nations. So they're developing, less ability to actually grow, more population means that their insustainability or unsustainability is also profited, or projected further, I should say, by their inability to grow. About half of the world increases in food production have been achieved by placing about 1% per annum more area under cultivation, even though the amount of unused arable land in the world is very small. So not a lot of land that we're not actually plotting to. The increase of the other half has been due to increases in production and food per hectare, achieved in part by massive irrigation projects, dams, irrigation canals, wells, tube wells, and so forth. And during the past 10 years and until 1974 or thereabouts, considerable increases in the use of fertilizer. I'm going to say it once. I'm not going to defend anything. GMOs are the future. They're helpful, and oftentimes any inadequacies that you might find in the product are negligible at best. I'd rather kill one person to pesticide to save 1 million. That's not even how that happens, though. The pumping of irrigation water from wells and fertilizer productions were made vastly more expensive by the OPEC nations' decision in 1973 to increase oil prices by a factor of 7. This has essentially closed the door to the Green Revolution in India and other poor countries of the world. For example, about 30% of the area of India is suitable for agriculture on the basis of irrigation from rivers and rains, excluding wells. The rest of the subcontinent does not have enough water to make it useful to give it a saturating amount of fertilizer. The agricultural miracles of the Green Revolution can be carried through only on well-watered, well-fertilized land, and their impact has not been as major as was expected in 1970, when it was widely widely heralded as signaling the end of human poverty and undernutrition. So essentially, because of OPEC and a couple of other intermingling bodies or intermingling nations, there was a dissolute amount or disproportionate amount of issue for the developing nations. Is that the only factor? Absolutely not. Trade and other economy decisions that were made, as well as socioeconomic decisions, so a lot more political, are also to be at play. However, we look at the next page. I swear I'm almost done. I'm just going to read to the end here. We'll see the species Homo sapiens is of the order of about 200,000 years old, and the genus Homo is about 1 or 2 million years old. What an insult. Probably 2 million years before Common Era, there were but a few thousand human beings who had, however, invented stone tools. They lived by hunting animals, ultimately causing the extinction of many, including the woolly mammoth in North America, fishing and gathering nuts, fruits, etc. They were very large, successful in competition with other mammals of that time, and slowly increased in the numbers to several million, roughly 10,000 years ago, before Common Era, when several groups independently invented agriculture, the taming of plants and animals. I don't really know if you tame a plant. It might be your kink, but not sure how that works. And their cultivation by human beings is an organized and permanent fashion. This happened in at least 3 separate locations: South China, the rice culture, the Near East, the wheat culture, and let's see here, in Central America, the maize culture. So all different times, it seems like, between land bridges in order to cross through, though it doesn't necessarily equate for time zones or time frames there. Agriculture stabilized people's lives and altered human existence in many important ways. No longer was it necessary for smaller groups to spread over wide areas to find prey. People settled in towns for mutual protection instead. The more reliable availability and quantity of food encouraged population growth. Agriculture spread rapidly during the following 2,000 years and brought about a quantum jump in number of people. In the beginning of the Christian era, about 100 million people inhabited the earth. Slow growth continued for another 1,500 years, reaching about 400 million in the 17th century. Beginning around 1650, however, the rate of increase to human population started to rise, due largely to improved land and sea transportation. Food could be carried from places of sufficiency to places of insufficiency, bringing control to intermittent famine that may have otherwise been 1 to 2 or 3 main contributors to control of the population growth. The 19th century saw the beginning of public health and the understanding of sanitation. In the 20th century, we have had the intervention of antibiotics and anti-malarials. Why is it bringing up malaria? Malaria, another principal controller of human population growth, is now controllable by the use of DDT. In Sri Lanka, for example, spraying stagnant pools where the mosquito carrier is bred decreased death rates from malaria by 1/3 in 1 year. Oh, okay. So I'm guessing, I don't actually know like pathogenic histories of human culture, that malaria was at one point such a big deal when it came to the idea of like mortality rates that that's why that's being brought up. I can't necessarily quote that to be the case. There is always that old, 3 Gs, guns, gold, and germs. Essentially, if you have immunity, you have superior power when it comes to sustainability. Guns for things like conquest and for any kind of imperial rule or general governing. And then gold just for the idea of economic prosperity, which will sort of lead to those other two, or kind of encapsulated by the two. I guess that makes sense. I'm not really sure. Anyway, probably going to do a little bit more long-form stuff like this. If you don't like it, that's fine. If you do, I don't know. If not, either way, come check out my little Pokemon wall. It's not very advanced, but let's see what we got here. Ring light, you're just going to stay right here, okay, buddy? Oh, I'm wrapped up. This is really nothing major, but I'm really happy about just having more Pokemon card stuff. And, oh yeah, there's my 5-foot-tall godless shrine. Peace.